Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Thursday, October the 27th. Zach Ewing here along with Jim Derry and Spencer the Guru as we prepare for Raiders-Saints this weekend, a big weekend in college football, Thursday night football, Bucks-Ravens, an intriguing game tonight, as well as Pelicans West Coast trip and the World Series this weekend. So a big sports weekend, guys, and let's dig right into it. I mean, I think there's lots of news to get to. Number one, Jamar Chase, they just announced of the Bengals, he's out 4 to 6 weeks with a hip injury. Andy Dalton is going to start for the Saints this week. Pick your poison. Where you want to start?
Well, I mean, if you're picking poison, then you're going to pick Andy Dalton. But
as soon as I said that, I knew there was some snarky comment coming.
But Jamar Chase, I mean, that's big news. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I never even knew he was really banged up. So the fact that it looks like he's going to go on IR, that's huge news for the Bengals. And if you haven't already grabbed the Cleveland plus 3.5, which is what the Sharps are doing, you better go find one because they're disappearing quickly.
I think it's already down to 3,
it's
just about
3 at
everywhere.
Caesars. I got it like right before we came on the show at MGM. I got it 3.5.
But I'm going to stick with the Bengals. We'll get to that in big bucks. But listen, the one thing the Bengals have plenty of is wide receivers. So we'll see what happens. But between T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd,
T. Higgins been a little banged up too, right, Spencer?
Maybe
yeah, and they're super thin. The Chase thing is a concern to me because they're super thin behind the 3 of them. So now that Chase is hurt, I don't know who's going to step up in the 3 wide sets. And the other Mike Thomas, he can't trust him. That's a big loss.
They're going to have to make Hayden Hurst the wide receiver.
Yeah, that's true.
I was told by a certain someone yesterday that wide receivers don't matter. So that's our segue into the Saints. That's
what I said, Jack Weed.
You said that Andy Dalton can't use the lack of receivers as an excuse.
He can. They went 9-8 with a plethora of bums last year.
Yeah, because the defense was playing well. All right, let's set the stage here. I do want to say before we get into it too much, Bayou Bets is brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. Sign up for the Caesars app today and get the first bet on Caesar up to $1,250. If you lose, you get it back as a free bet. Use promo code NOLAFULL or visit NOLA.com/Caesars. Also like to remind you to subscribe, like, and visit the Bayou Bets YouTube page. Just posted another Cashing In with Carville episode this morning. So go to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe if you would. All right, Saints
Where's your
Raiders.
dunce cap, by the way.
Saints Raiders. What do you mean my dunce cap?
There it is. The dunce cap.
I made money this week in big bucks. All right.
Miracles happen.
Every day. Every day. In fact, the Saints might even beat the Raiders this week. I kind of think they will, guys.
I mean, like I said on the fantasy show Tuesday, I hope you're right, but I don't think you will be. I don't like the matchup. Raiders, really good running back with Josh Jacobs. Saints run defense has struggled this year, and then their Saints secondary still banged up. Derek Carr and Devontae Adams have great chemistry. So if Andy Dalton in the offense comes to play, maybe, but I don't think they'll be able to keep up.
Are we making our predictions already?
No, we don't need to make a prediction already. I will say we're going to visit with Max Meyer at Caesars Sportsbook, who follows a lot of the trends. And Saints have received several sharp bets, Jim. I mean, listen, the whole QB argument for me comes to this, and you should listen to Jim's attitude this morning if you want to really get into it, because your monologue is all about the quarterback decision to go with Dalton over Jameis Winston. I don't think it matters that much. And Max says the same thing. When the announcement was made that Dalton was starting over Winston, the line didn't move at all. I mean, Winston and Dalton, I don't think there's that much difference. The problem for the Saints is the defense. If they went 9-8 last year, not because of the quarterback play, for goodness sake. It was because they had a top 5 defense that has disappeared this year.
I'm going to go real slow, okay? So everyone can understand me. I know it's hard to comprehend. Andy Dalton is a surefire 6-11. 6-11, or a 7-10 type quarterback. The Saints are if Andy Dalton starts every game the rest of the way, you can book it 6-11 or 7-10 the rest of the way. It's surefire. It's done. Okay, you can take these. Well, hold on. You take these words and play them back to me at the end of the year. You're more than welcome to do that. Here's the thing with Jameis Winston, they may be 6-10. I mean, 6-11. They may be 7-10. I'm still getting used to a 17-game season. But the floor for Jameis Winston is significantly higher than Andy Dalton.
You mean the ceiling?
The ceiling, yeah. If this team were 5-2, which is what I said on Datitude, if this team were 5-2 or 4-3, and Jameis still hadn't coming back, and Andy Dalton had been just okay, and the Saints had found ways to win, I'd say, you know what? I don't really agree with the decision, but I wouldn't be as adamant about the fact that Jameis needs to start, because this team is in a spot where it has to gamble. It has to go for the high ceiling. It has to have a quarterback that can do the things that Jameis can do, not an Andy Dalton who is just lackluster, ho-hum, get you to 6. That's not going to cut it. 6-11 is not going to cut it. 7-10 is not going to cut it. So, I mean, if you want that, then fine. If you want a guy who's just going to go out there, throw for 240 yards, go 18 for 36, throw 1 or 2 touchdowns, is going to throw an interception, and he's going to do nothing special, then Andy Dalton's your guy. If you want a guy who, he's going to throw some picks, he's going to look terrible at times, but he's going to also look fantastic at other times, then Jameis Winston's your man. But this team cannot win. They cannot go to the playoffs with Andy Dalton as their quarterback the rest of the way, plain and simple.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you, and Spencer, I want your take in a second too. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think Jameis is the more volatile quarterback. But I just think the discussion is taking place in the wrong realm. The problem with this team is the defense. If they had Andy Dalton last year, you keep talking about last year, and they went 9-8 with the receivers. They went 9-8 last year because the defense was elite. If Andy Dalton had taken over when Jameis Winston got hurt last year, the Saints would have made the playoffs. They would have beat Tennessee. I think they probably beat Miami, or at least have a chance in that game.
Don't disagree at all.
And so I don't know that Dalton is going to, if Dalton starts and they go 6-11, I don't think it's going to be because of Andy Dalton. And he threw 6 touchdowns, and a couple of them were to the wrong team. But
and another pick in the end zone.
Demario Davis stepped up this week and said, "Look, we got to play better." That's where the focus should be on for me, Spencer.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. I mean, the loss of Sean Payton's really being felt this year.
True.
I mean, this is looking like, the way they played so far, hopefully they turn around. But this is looking like the worst Saints team since 2005, and that was the last year before Sean Payton. So they're not. I'm not saying they're as bad as that, but it's
the worst since then. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just they just look so rough right now, and I think a lot of it has to do with that. I mean, Dennis Allen. I mean, I don't want to totally throw him under the bus, but it's like he didn't do well as a head coach in the past, and he's not off to a good start here. And the defense is what he takes pride in, is just it's stinking it up right now. And so they're gonna have to get it back on track, because if not, I don't know if he's gonna have a job next year as far as the head coach.
It looks like the Aaron Kromer, Joe Vitt teams. I agree with Spencer about the coaching part of it. To me, that may even be the number one problem. I mean, Dennis Allen is not motivating this team at all, and it looks as if like Alvin Kamara and Demario Davis, maybe they're finally stepping up and say, you know what, Jobo, you can't hit a curveball. I do it myself. I mean, that's what it kind of looks like right now, and I don't disagree with anything you said, Zach. As far as the defense being a big problem, they certainly have been a problem. I don't disagree with the fact that if Andy Dalton was the quarterback of this team, the Saints would have gone to the playoffs. The point is, they do have a problem with defense this year. They do need something else, and Andy Dalton is not the quarterback that is going to take things on his shoulders and be able to do things that this team needs it to do. And they need to gamble at this point. And you're not gambling when you're putting Andy Dalton in there. It's kind of like, you're playing with house money, and you're like, I'll just bet on the minus 150 money line because it's easy and it's not my money. I mean, that's kind of what the Saints are doing right now. This is just another example of where we're just going to go with the way things are going and not change anything up. I mean, you don't see Michael Thomas rushing back to get here, do you? He was all fired up and all gung-ho in the beginning, and he's disappeared again.
That's
not fair? He's only going to play for a team that wants to win. He's not. I mean, come on.
We don't know what the injury is. I mean, we don't know the extent of that. Look, I think it'd be a big help if he got
Landry too. Where's he been?
This is my Landry may be long-term hurt, it sounds like. I mean, it sounds like he's a lot further away from coming back than Lattimore or Thomas. But we'll see. I mean, this is. I was thinking about this, and one thing I actually think Dennis Allen got right is one way or the other, pick somebody. Don't go through one of these. Jameis is he's a little banged up, and we'll see what happens. And then you send Jameis back out there, he throws one pick, and then you send Dalton back out there, and then he throws a pick, and nobody knows who the quarterback is or what the plan is.
Like the Patriots.
Yeah, pick somebody.
Yeah, I don't deny that at all. I don't deny that at all. I mean, that could be as well. But I'm so sick of hearing, you've said it. We now have a comment that you're playing right now, and I've heard it all over through Datitude listeners and people that I just know. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Horse hockey, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It's the most important position on the damn field. It certainly matters who the quarterback is. And if you want ho-hum, then keep going. Take it. I agree with you, Zach. I think he had to make a decision, and that's the decision he made. And I said it on Datitude, and I'll say it again. It's the kind of decision that gets a coach fired. Because if you go 6-11 with this team, you're probably getting fired because you got the talent of an 11-6 team, or even maybe better than that, as was shown by media members in this area, all picking the Saints to win 10 or more games. So go ahead and make a decision that's going to get you fired, because if you stick with Andy Dalton, you're going to get fired.
Look, he may get fired anyway. I wouldn't fire him after 1 year, but he may get fired anyway. Here's my thing, though. By making that decision, by choosing Dalton, what it tells me is that the Saints internally still think they have a good enough roster to win. Now, you say the quarterback. When I say the quarterback doesn't matter, I'm saying between Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton, neither one of them is good enough to carry this team. The rest of the roster has to play better. If you put Patrick Mahomes on this team, then yeah, the quarterback is going to matter. If you go back to Trevor Siemian, then yeah, it's going to matter because it doesn't matter how good the defense plays. But between Dalton and Winston, I'm just not seeing a huge hell of a lot of difference. And that's where I say I think the Saints don't want to rock the boat. I think they have enough there, and they've been close. Look,
that's my point. Don't rock the boat and get what you've been getting. You don't rock the boat, you're going to keep getting more of the same. So don't rock the boat. This
team could easily be 5-2. I mean, I know could have, would have, should have. Jim Moore, right? Like they're not getting blown out by anybody. The Cardinals game was a blowout for a little while because of the turnovers and
there's some moral victories for you.
But what I'm saying is they're close enough.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point, Zach, too, but I'm more with Jim on this as far as, I mean, you're 2-5, your back's against the wall. I mean, you just kind of have to rock the boat. You're so injured, and these guys don't seem to be anywhere close to coming back. To me, you're just going to have to just try something different because what's working right now, I know you've been close, but close isn't it. I mean, you got to start winning football games because if you don't, then people will start getting fired. And, I mean, no one wants to get fired, right? So, to me, you got to make changes. I'd rather make a change and have it not work than look back and be like, I should have done this, could have done that. At least if you make the change and it doesn't work, at least you tried to adjust.
I'll say this, and I know, I guess it's unfair in a way, but this isn't a decision Sean Payton would have made. I promise you, if Sean Payton were the quarterback, the coach of this team, Jameis Winston would be playing quarterback.
Payton was the one who wanted Winston in the first place, so that's definitely
true. Almost zero doubt in my mind. So. Go ahead. Pick Dennis Allen's side. We'll see what we get. Again, I'll say it again. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we come back here in 4 weeks from now and y'all are laughing at me for, and the listeners are out there saying this guy's a dumbass. I mean, I hope it happens. I really do. I hope I'm wrong because I'm tired of watching this crap. Me too. Really tired of watching it. It's getting old, and it's hard to do a show the same week on this show and my podcast 3 times a week saying the same damn thing because that's what I've been saying. Same thing. Could have, would have, should have. They're better than this. Blah, blah, blah. No heart. I mean, it's the same show. You can just bottle it up and say it again and again.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I am – you made the comment earlier in the week, Jim, you were surprised the Raiders were favored. I'm not. I mean, I think this is the definition of a toss-up game. You got 2 teams that have had trouble closing games. The Raiders are on the road. The Saints have been close. I mean, I think the health situation is going to matter. Michael Thomas makes a huge difference to me.
Well, Devontae Adams is questionable as well. And he's certainly worth a point or two.
And Darren Waller.
Darren Waller's they're not exactly in the greatest shape, and they've won 2 games this year, both at home, against the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans. What gives them the right to be favored in New Orleans? It makes 0 sense. I mean, at worst, at very worst, it should be a pick'em game. But you're telling me now, by the Raiders being a 1.5 point favorite, if the Saints went to Vegas, that means they'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 6 point dog. That's absurd against a team that basically has the same record as them and has done nothing.
The last time the Raiders went on the road was Monday Night Football against the Chiefs, and they darn near won that game. So it's not like they can't play on the road. I'm just saying I don't think they're a bad team. But let's pivot a bit and talk Thursday Night Football because it does have to do with the Saints. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. This line, and we'll talk to Max Meyer about this later, but it's been all over the place. Bucks opened as a favorite, then it flipped all the way over to Ravens -2, and now it's flipped all the way back. Some big bets coming in on the Bucks. I don't know how you can trust the Bucks, but I wouldn't necessarily bet against them either in this game.
I like them in this spot.
Go ahead, Zach. Spencer, you go first.
Okay. All right. Well, I like them in this spot. I know they played bad lately, but it's not like the Ravens have played good either. The Ravens got lucky against the Browns last week. They could have lost that game. Neither team has been impressive lately, but the Ravens backs aren't quite as much against the wall because they're still tied for first. I know the Bucks still are too, but they have a losing record to where I feel like the Bucks being at home and everyone's writing Brady off. I think they'll take advantage of what's a pretty poor Ravens pass defense.
Zach, you never even you like to put up the comments. How come you didn't put this one up?
I did.
Oh, I didn't. I missed
that one
it.
up. Yeah,
it was up.
Yeah.
It was up.
Oh, I missed it. I got double play. I must have been too red in the eyeballs. Look, I loved Tampa when it was +1 because you could tease them. And now the books have kind of caught on. There was one huge bet, from what I understand, $110,000 bet on Tampa Bay at +1.5.
Max talks about that in our segment later.
But $110,000 bet doesn't make the line change from +1.5 to -2. So let's not fool anybody. This is simply about, I think the books realize we can't throw Tampa Bay out there at +1 because then you put them in a teaser at +7 and you just get it handed to you. Because I'd be shocked and it's my bet of the week. It was before the line changed. I put it in my best bets teaser with the Saints, and I had to kind of change it for the show because the line changed between the time I wrote my column to the time that we're coming on the show. So I had to change one of my best bets. But I mean that's all it is. It's the books' insurance against themselves. So I still like Tampa Bay in this one. I can't. This is kind of last chance week for a lot of teams for me. That's kind of my theme throughout my NFL picks column, and it was my theme when we were doing the show with Uncle Big Nick this morning. And it's last chance week. If the Bucks stinking up again, I'm just going to stay away from them, or I'm going to bet against them. One of the two. The same for the Packers. And I just can't believe that Brady and Rodgers are this bad. So tonight against a good team on a short week, I really like the Bucks. Really more Brady more than anything, and I think the defense is going to step up for Tampa Bay tonight. They're going to have to, or they're written off.
Well, the thing about the NFC South is there's lots of second chances.
Yeah.
Because the Bucks and Falcons, both 3 and 4, lead the division over the Saints and Panthers, who are both 2 and 5. These are the current odds. Obviously, Bucks, their pedigree, they're still favored. I mean, they have tiebreakers over the Falcons and Saints at this point. You still think at some point they get it going, but boy, they look broken in Charlotte last week. I mean, that did not look like a championship caliber team in any way, shape, or form.
I think they're broken anyway. I mean, I think this isn't a long-term bet. I like the Tampa Bay tonight because I do think that it's going to be – I think they'll end up with 8 or 9 wins. And I don't think it's going to be a consistent thing. I think you'll see – I think they'll win tonight. You think they're back, and then I don't even know who they play next week, but I'd probably bet against them next week because I don't think this is going to be a consistent thing. I think that, though, with their backs up against the wall and the way they played last night, I think they'll be focused. A short week is a good thing for a team that played so poorly the week before. You can't remember what happened last week. You don't have time to sit around and stew about it. You got to get going and forget about it. So that's why I like Tampa Bay tonight. But I think Tampa's got long-term problems. And I got to tell you, as much as I've been dogging on the Saints and talking about Dalton, I mean, at plus 650, I mean, 6.5 to – you're telling me the Saints are still 6.5 to 1? That's kind of crazy. I think there's value there, and is even more ridiculous as it sounds. I don't think they're going to win the division. I think they absolutely stink. But what happens if the Panthers beat the Falcons this week? and they're 20-1 right now to win the division. They're one game behind Tampa Bay, and then they could also be in first place. I mean, 20-1. Go ahead, give me a little bit of that. I might go put $10 on that and just have fun with it. But I don't think they're going to win the division. But it's certainly worth. It's you look for value. There's no more value than that.
Uncle Big Nick had it. The Bucks play the Rams also at home next week, and then they're in Germany to play the Seahawks after that. So game,
right.
that'll be pretty interesting. I mean, at first you think, oh, the Bucks will kill the Seahawks. Why'd they give Germany that game? Might end up being pretty interesting.
That is an interesting matchup.
So we shall see what happens there. Other NFL games this week: Steelers-Eagles. Some years that would be a great game, and that's.
Remember the old Steagles, Zach?
I don't.
They actually played together. Had to play together one season for back in the 50s, I believe, and they called them the Steagles.
You know what? Now that you mentioned that, I think I've heard.
Yeah,
of
they
that.
had to merge them.
Was it? During the war, is that when it was?
Yeah, I think during World War II.
Go ahead, Nick. Yeah, Jim remembers it well. Okay. Now we move on.
Lots to get to, so we'll run through these pretty quick. Y'all mentioned the Panthers and Falcons. Jim, I know you love the Patriots in this spot. I like them too.
The Patriots, I said it this morning, might be my bet of the year. I love the Patriots this week. They have won 12 in a row straight up against the Jets, and I think it's 21 of 23. So Bill Belichick knows two things. He knows how to beat the Browns, and he knows how to beat the Jets, besides winning Super Bowls. He knows how to do that too. But and look, this isn't – they've won 12 in a row. And not only that, without Brady, super convincing. If I remember correctly, it's the average score is somewhere along the lines of 34-15 in those 4 victories without Brady. So it has nothing to do with Tom Brady being there or not being there. The Patriots own the Jets. And not only that, the Jets without Breece Hall is rough. And I think Spencer would he's talked about missing Breece Hall and, what are they going to do? They're going to have to turn to Carter now. And, is James Robinson going to get in there, and how much is he going to be able to play? It's going to be kind of like Christian McCaffrey going to San Francisco last week. They'll use him at some point, but I don't think they're going to be able to give him a full load or anything like that. So it's all on Zach Wilson, and Bill Belichick knows how to beat up on teams that are one-dimensional, and the Jets are going to have to pass this week.
I think the Patriots can also, like this Bailey Zappi thing, it was a good story. He's not better than Mac Jones, and I think that makes a difference too, that they figured out that Mac is the guy.
Oh, it makes a difference at quarterback?
It will. When one is clearly better than the other, yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, Spencer, your take on this?
Yeah, I kind of like the Patriots. I probably won't play that one because I'm a little nervous that this Belichick, man, he seems like he's not as sharp. I mean, I know it might be recency bias, but man, they look bad against the Bears. Holy crap! I mean, it knocked me out of Survivor. They just look awful. Their defense.
Can't let one game.
I know. If I had to pick this, and I'd go to Patriots, but out of that board there, which we'll get to it in big bucks, but I really do like the Falcons this week.
All right, and want to pivot to college real quick, and then we're going to get to Max Meyer and our trends report. This is sort of the calm before the storm in college. Next week you get Georgia, Tennessee, and, of course, Alabama, LSU. Still some interesting games here, though. Like Ohio State and Tennessee, top 5 teams, very good teams. Boy, are they laying a lot of points against good opponents.
Yeah, Uncle Big Nick was all over some of these big dogs. So I defer to him when it comes to college, but some of these numbers, the only number that I like up there is I'm willing to lay the 22.5 with Georgia. And I know that's a rivalry game. Are they playing it in Jacksonville?
They are.
So I mean, it's a rivalry game. It's in between homes. So I'm a little nervous, a little leery, and I hate the number 22 because you get 20, you get 21. There's actually a big difference. So I don't love that. It's not one that I'm going to go put a lot of money on, but I think Florida stinks, and I think Georgia is ready to make their surge. This is the time of year I think when Georgia is going to start to make a run. So that's the only game on this board that I really like. I know Uncle Big Nick really likes Kentucky and really likes Penn State. I don't like Penn State at all. Kentucky, I could see this is a weird spot for Tennessee. So I could see the Kentucky thing, but Tennessee gets Georgia next week, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
that's a
this is
definite look ahead spot.
Yeah, bad spot for Tennessee. And Kentucky's actually, I've been saying it all year, Kentucky's underrated. It really is. So the Ole Miss line does stink. It's really weird. And Ole Miss kind of in a similar boat. They're giving points on the road against the team that's, are we sure that they're better than Texas A&M? I mean, Texas A&M's been all over the map this year.
Yeah, I don't know what to think. I like A&M money line too, Uncle Big Nick. The only thing that worries me is that locker room might be just broken.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I want no part of A&M.
Yeah, another college question here. FIU against Louisiana. Boy, we're going down the board.
Where's Devin Jackson? Can we phone a friend?
Louisiana Tech is 6.5-point favorite. I tell you what, take the under. That under's up at 58.5. FIU can't score.
That sounds like a good line for a lot of Tech. I mean, FIU stinks, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but so does Tech. So does Tech, man.
They can't be that bad.
I wish I'd gotten that question before I talked to Max Meyer. Max Meyer, Caesars editorial writer, joined us earlier to talk some trends for Saints Raiders and the rest of the football weekend and the World Series ahead. So here's the conversation that I had with him. All right, we welcome into the show Max Meyer from Caesars Sportsbook. Max, appreciate you dropping by on what I know is a busy weekend for you guys between all the football action and, of course, the World Series starting this weekend.
Yeah, October and November with all the sports leagues going on and all the hoopla, it's definitely a wild time. But when you work in sports, it's the best time too.
Absolutely. A sports equinox coming on Saturday, of course, with Game 2 of the World Series and the NFL, NBA. I guess it wouldn't be. No, I guess we don't have a sports equinox, do we? Not quite. We just missed it because we won't have NFL and MLB on the same day. But, hey, it's still a great weekend. If you take the weekend as a whole, it's an equinox. Let's start in the NFL. Saints Raiders, we've been talking about it on the show. The Raiders are 2-point favorites. Jim is surprised by that. I'm not too surprised by that. I guess that makes it a good line. It certainly hasn't moved very much. I think it's toggled between 1.5 and 2 points. What have you seen as far as action on this one?
Yeah, so right now it is at Raiders -1.5, but you're right. It's been bouncing back between 1.5 and 2. It hasn't touched any number besides that. Spread-wise, Raiders, especially, obviously Caesars has big Nevada clientele, and so they're always eager to back their Raiders. They've gotten about 69% of the tickets, but only about 57% of the handles. So we have seen a little bit of sharp action on the Saints. Where we've seen really lopsided action, though, is the total. This one opened at 47 for us. It's up to 49. About 86% of the tickets, 94% of the handles on the over. I mean, these are two of the best over teams in the NFL, along with the Browns and the Lions so far this season. And so not a surprise, especially with how disappointing the Saints defense has been. I mean, you just have to look at last Thursday night and see the offensive explosion that was Saints Cardinals. And yeah, so a lot of action on that over. And that's definitely been the most lopsided so far of the straight bets for this one.
Saints announced yesterday that Andy Dalton would be their starter both Sunday and going forward. Didn't seem to affect the line much. Did you see anything, any movement based on that announcement?
No, and there really hasn't been that much movement, whether it was, with Jameis being hurt and just whether the questions if he was going to play versus Dalton with any of these games, that there really hasn't been that much impact on the line. So the market has spoken. Jameis and Andy Dalton, there isn't much of a difference between the two in terms of where the spread is.
Yeah, that's about where I come down, and it's funny you insert that into the argument we've been having, but not too much difference on the spread itself. What about the rest of the NFL weekend? Anything interesting? Maybe tonight's game, Ravens-Bucks. That line has been all over the place, or any game Sunday that's caught your eye.
Yeah, so Ravens-Bucks, like you said, we originally opened it Bucks as a small favorite. Then the Ravens became a small road favorite, was 1.5 for majority of the week. But then we took a 6-figure bet on Buccaneers plus 1.5. And then yesterday, Buccaneers got to their current price, which is -2. This is actually the one spread, really interesting action where one team's gotten over 60% of the tickets, but the other team's gotten 60% of the money. with the Ravens getting about 66% of the tickets and the Bucks getting 66% of the money. So this is a typical public versus sharps game. And, even though it's Tom Brady who really wants to back the Bucks when they are just coming off 2 losses to the Steelers and the Panthers, but, people see the Buccaneers as a home dog, even against a good team like the Ravens, and they see it as value. And so that's where we've gotten some of the bigger bets on the Bucks. Another one that's interesting to me is Patriots Jets. So this one we opened Patriots 1-point road favorite against the Red Hot Jets, went quickly to pick them. Then we took really strong action on Patriots there. And then it went back to 2.5, then down to 1.5 after the Patriots fell flat on their faces against the Bears, and then back up to 2.5, which is where they're at now. This has been the most lopsided action in terms of handle, with the Patriots getting about like 89% of it. And it really hasn't been like, we haven't been getting that many big bets on the Patriots. It's been more of a lack of spread action on the Jets, which I find interesting given that they've covered 4 in a row. The fact that we're in New York, and you would think that, Jets as a home underdog here against a team that isn't perceived as a true playoff contender, that they'd be getting a good amount of spread and money line action, but that hasn't necessarily been the case.
Yeah, very interesting. Speaking of tonight's game, you mentioned the one big bet on the Buccaneers that really started that line movement. When you give those numbers, 67% of bets on the Ravens, 57% of the money on the Bucks. I'm off by a little bit, I know, but how much of that is that one bet that skews those totals, or have you seen multiple sharp bets on Tampa Bay?
There's been multiple sharp bets on Tampa Bay, and the Bucks. They wouldn't be at 66%, obviously, where they're at now without the 6-figure bet, but they would still be, it'd be right around that 50% range. It'd be pretty much a dead heat. So even with the Ravens getting all of those smaller bets, the bigger, sharper bets are what's evening it out. And with the 6-figure bet, now it's over the top for the Bucks at 66%.
All right, very interesting. Well, a couple of other questions for you, Max. We do want to talk briefly about the NBA. The Pelicans off to a 3-1 start, beat the Mavericks the other night without Brandon Ingram, without Zion Williamson. It seems to me, looking at futures odds, the team is getting quite a lot of action in those markets.
Yeah, so, before the season, Zion was the most popular MVP bet by tickets. Pelicans were top 5 and tickets to win the title. And the Pelicans got to as low as 20-1 on opening night. Their price has since risen a little bit to 22-1, and it's really been through no fault of their own. Like you said, they're 3-1, and that was an impressive win against the Mavericks. I think it's just more that the Western Conference, I guess outside of the Lakers, has looked a little tougher than anticipated, with the Jazz certainly not looking like a pushover early on, and the Blazers looking good, and then you still have those elite teams. So the Western Conference, for as exciting as the Pelicans are, it definitely seems a little bit more daunting than where it was before the season. And now Zion's up to 22-1 for MVP, but that's just, given that he's missed a couple games, and guys like Ja Morant and Jason Tatum, they've shot up the odds board and are now in that top 3, top 4 group in terms of odds.
Absolutely. And we'll end here, Max, this week with the World Series. I know you're headed down to Houston for Game 1. Just had a chance to talk to Mattress Mac on a conference call about the $75 million he plans on winning if he stands to win, I should say, if the Astros win the World Series. Right now, they're favorites, -190, Phillies +170. But the interesting thing is, in part because of those Mattress Mac bets, you can actually get the Phillies at a better price at Caesars than anywhere else.
Yeah, just because of the liability. We knew that when we were opening up this series that we were going to be a little bit higher than market on the Astros opponent, just to try and offset a little bit of that huge Mac potential payout, which is $30 million with Caesars after he bet $3 million at 10-1. And yeah, sure enough, we got a couple 6-figure bets on Phillies at +175. We got 200,000 from one Nevada bettor, 100,000 from another. And so the Phillies, ever since the series price has been released, they've been getting more tickets and handle. But obviously, we're big Phillies fans just because of the Mac bet.
Do you see the Phillies as live dogs in this one, Max? Obviously the Astros have swept through the playoffs so far. They won 106 games, but Philly also red hot coming in.
Yeah, and I think with the Phillies, with how they're built, it feels like that they're kind of, like a perfect model for what baseball is today, aces and power bats. And so, no, you're right. Like, I still think the Astros have the more complete roster, but we see time and time again in October that it's the red hot team that can upset favorites left and right. And so, yeah, I think the Phillies are live for sure.
All right, Max Meyer of Caesar Sports, we appreciate you coming by, dropping some knowledge on trends
and action reports this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Zach, and good luck to everyone with their bets this weekend.
All right, thanks, Max.
All right, so Max Meyer, we appreciate him stopping by on a busy day. He was on his way down to Houston. While we were playing that, Kyle, have we talked to college games tonight? That's actually interesting. The Raging Cajuns facing off with Southern Miss. It was even money most of the week, and then Southern Miss was actually favored by a point. It shifted a ton today. Cajuns by 2.5 now.
Wow.
So if you're looking to follow money, the Raging Cajuns on the road, they have been hot, Spencer.
Yeah, the quarterback, Ben Woolridge, really looking like the real deal. And so I think the Cajuns win outright and cover that. They've gotten some serious momentum going. They've made a statement these past couple weeks, and I feel like they're starting to get on the right track.
Right, before we go ahead, Jim.
I wanted to say before we move on, there's a point I wanted to make, and I input one of my graphics for tomorrow, kind of going back to what Spencer was talking about with Saints Raiders, and kind of going to the point of why you don't understand the line. And I think this graphic is interesting because if you look at first off, we talk about how much greater the Saints offense is with Dalton. It's really not that much better. I mean, first off, last week's numbers kind of skewed some things, but the Saints were 9th in passing with Jameis, and now they're 8th in passing. So that hasn't changed all that much.
Did anybody say that they were much better with Dalton?
No. But hold on. But to the point of why I think this line is weird, because if you look at the rankings, I mean, the Saints defense isn't that bad. All I've been hearing is how bad the Saints defense is. They're 14th in the NFL. That's not that bad. So you look at the Raiders, they have the 11th best rushing offense only because Josh Jacobs has a couple really good games. But, defensively, the Saints, they haven't been great against the run, but they haven't been all that bad either. So to me, it's kind of a skewed thing, and I just don't get this line at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. And the Saints defense, going back to other arguments, they haven't been good, but they haven't been that bad. In fact, that number 14 is actually moved up the last few weeks. They were like 19th or 20th when I did Datitude like 3 weeks ago. So they've actually gotten a little bit better. So using the defense's bad argument doesn't really work for me because they're not as good as they were last year. Where they were 5th, but 14th is not terrible. It's average.
It's not. But when you're down huge in the second half, I mean that skews
think about it. Andy Dalton gave him 2 touchdowns.
I'll tell you. Go ahead, Spencer.
Okay, I think the odds makers have gotten to the point to where like the Saints turn the ball over so much to where it's like they just assume they're going to lose the turnover battle. They're going to give it away at least once or twice. I think that's why these lines are. I mean, on paper, they got the Saints are competitive. They should be favored at home against a fellow struggling team, but they're so turnover prone where it's like you can't ignore that.
Yeah, you know what's weird about that, Spence, is that usually turnovers are not factored in the lines at all. But I agree with you. I think they're just, and I think it's affecting like Detroit. Remember when Detroit was being favored? Now they're 3.5-point underdogs to an average Miami team. I know Miami was good in the beginning of the season. They get in Tua back and whatever, but it's another line that I thought was a little weird. But it's because Detroit's been turning the ball over. The Saints have been turning the ball over. I agree with Spencer, and so that's usually not factored into a line, but I think it is now.
Well, the Saints are -10 in turnover differential.
Yeah,
that was
terrible.
exactly my point.
They're not getting any. They're not getting any.
That's the thing. That's where the defense has been bad.
I agree with that.
Interception. In 7 games.
It was the Honey Badger that
in London.
Step in front of one.
And it was basically he stepped in front of a bad Kirk Cousins pass.
Yeah.
One interception.
Yeah, that was a blind squirrel finds an acorn because Honey Badger stunk this year.
At least Michael Thomas hasn't been on the field. I mean, Honey Badger's on the field, but I don't notice him. He might as well go hang out with Michael Thomas because he's been a no-show.
Yeah. We noticed him missing tackles. I mean, I've noticed him.
Maybe he's done worse than Michael Thomas.
The Saints have recovered 5 fumbles, so they have 6 takeaways total, 16 giveaways. Among the only 4 teams with fewer takeaways, Las Vegas Raiders only have 4. So that's kind of interesting. 3 interceptions and one fumble recovery. So,
look, they're not going to – if Andy Dalton doesn't get a lot of pressure, and I don't think he's going to have a ton of pressure this week, I think this is going to be a big Alvin Kamara week. I actually think Taysom Hill's got to be part of the game plan this week because he can kind of destroy this team, actually. this is a good matchup for Taysom Hill. So I know the Saints are banged up, and now looks like Juwan Johnson's banged up. So Taysom Hill might be a great DFS play, and Chris Olave might not be a bad one either. But I think that you're going to see a lot of Alvin Kamara this week, and I think you're going to see a lot of Taysom Hill, and it's going to be kind of a recipe for, finding what works. I think they're going to have to find what works offensively.
All right, we will get to our big bucks picks and our official Saints predictions at the end of the show. I did want to go through quickly a couple of other things that Max mentioned. World Series starts tomorrow night in Houston, 7 o'clock. Astros minus 190, Phillies plus 170. This is the highest Phillies price in the market because Mattress Mac put $3 million at 10-1 on the Astros. And so Caesar's trying to balance that out at least a little bit.
Made it hard to hedge.
Are the Phillies... Are they live dogs? I mean, I like the idea that Nola and Wheeler could start 5 of the 7 games in this series.
Absolutely, they are. I think the Phillies are a great play here. And I'm biased. I got my ticket on the Phillies before the season started, and I've been riding them like a pony. And I thought I was dead with them for a while, and I should have put more money on them. Now that I look at it, and they were at 60-1 at one point, I think in July. So I missed the boat on that, and it's only because I really wasn't paying enough attention, to be honest. But I think the Phillies, the way they're playing right now, to me, the team that is playing the hungriest, and the Astros are just kind of businesslike, right? They expect to be there. And I've said it before, and I've said it again. I think Dusty Baker teams just find ways to choke. They really do. And the Phillies had this look about them. They showed it against the Padres, and I know the Padres were just happy to beat the Dodgers, so that's part of their MO. But the Phillies just have that look right now. And I would not want to go against Bryce Harper and even Rhys Hoskins is hitting the ball, and Schwarber's hitting them 490 feet. And I mean, they could do everything. And like you talk about, the top of their rotation is just fantastic. So, I mean, if they can keep it going, the bullpen hasn't been bad either. So I think this is a team that thinks they can win. If they win one of the 2 in Houston, look out.
Spencer, your take on the World Series?
Oh, yeah, I kind of would like to think the Phillies would have a better chance, but just looking at the Astros, I just don't see any holes on that roster to where their bullpen to me is better. Their overall rotation is better. I feel like their top 2 are like Verlander and Framber. I'd give a slight edge to them over Wheeler and Nola. Nola, I know he's an LSU guy. People love him, but I think he's slightly overrated. I'm not as big on Nola as some. He's shown a lot of times that he's pretty solid, but then he'll have an inning where he gives up multiple runs, and against the Astros, man, you're gonna have to be on point pretty much every day, and it's like I just don't see him being able to be that consistent. Because a regular season win difference of like 20. I know postseason different animal, but to me, the Astros they're built for this. I mean, they've done it before the past 6 years, I think, and where the Phillies is their first time being there in like a decade. So, to me, the Astros experience is going to win out.
It's more the pitching for me, guys. I mean, the Astros they have no bad pitchers, not one. I think I read today they had 2 pitchers who had an ERA of over 4 the entire year, and those 2 combined for 8 2/3 innings. Like they just. There is not a bad pitcher
and yet
on the
their only
roster.
World Series is when they cheated.
Hey, I get that. And I think the Phillies have a chance here. My favorite play, I actually like the Phillies in Game 1 because, honestly, of the guys getting innings for Houston right now, the worst pitcher in the playoffs by a significant margin has been Justin Verlander. By a significant margin. And so I think, but the Phillies are going to have to use Nola and Wheeler and their hot bullpen arms. The back half of the Astros lineup is not nearly as good as it has been in years past. The top half's still very good. Once you get past like Kyle Tucker in the 5 spot, those bottom 4 are not very good. Altuve hasn't been hitting.
Aaron Nola did pitch against the Astros this season. 6 2/3 innings, no earned runs, 2 hits, 9 strikeouts, and no walks.
I think the Phillies are going to have to win low-scoring games. I mean, I know Schwarber and Harper have been hot, but they haven't been hitting the top guys. Like, they didn't hit Yu Darvish very much. They hit Sean Manaea when he came in and Mike Clevenger when he came in for San Diego.
And they suck.
So you're not going to see that against Houston, but I do like the Phillies in Game 1, and then maybe you turn around, and if the Phillies can win Game 1, you could get Houston something close to even money for the series after that, and that's a play that I actually really like.
Well, I mean, I would definitely hedge if that happened. I've already hedged a little bit, just enough to basically cover my bet and win a little bit. So I'm going to win something no matter what. I mean, I bet enough to win a little bit. But, I mean, you talk about the game that I was talking about, Aaron Nola beat Lance McCullers. So I know that's not one of the top two, but it's no slouch. I mean, so they can Schwarber homered twice in that game, by the way. And Bryson Stott also homered. And they had 3 solo home runs. I think the Phillies' power is going to matter in this series. And in that place, as good as the Astros pitching is, this team can hit them out of anywhere. They can certainly hit it out of that place. And
that's the recipe for the Phillies. Hit a couple of solo homers and hope Nola and Wheeler shove. And that's your recipe right there. So we'll see what happens. Real quick, want to move on to the NBA. Pelicans' big win on Tuesday with no Brandon Ingram, with no Zion Williamson, with no Herb Jones. They go on the West Coast now for 3 in a row. In fact, only one of their next 7 games is at home. That's on November the 4th, which I think is a Friday night against Golden State. There are other 6 games all on the road coming up. No Brandon Ingram on this road trip, Spencer, but the way the Pels play, they get after you defensively. The 3-1, I think they could pick up at least 1 win on this road trip, if not 2.
Yeah, I think so. They're chippy. They really surprised me against Dallas. I didn't like them in that spot, but they proved me wrong. Played really tough. They just got that it factor to them. I feel like Willie Green's a great coach. He gets them motivated no matter what. I'd say Zion or no Zion. I hope Zion plays. Obviously, he gives them a better chance. But even without him, they could definitely take a few. The Lakers, it's like the way the Lakers look, that looks like it should be a gimme game, especially the way the Pels. I know it's crazy to call a LeBron team a gimme, but it's like the way the Pels have owned them and just the way they've looked so bad. I feel like that one's a dub for sure. And then the Clippers, though, could be a little tricky. But Kawhi's still banged up coming off that ACL. And we know what they did against the Suns last year. So I'm thinking they split Clippers, Suns, and then beat the Lakers by double digits.
And speaking of guys just taking forever to get back from injury, did Kawhi Leonard tear his ACL again or something? It's been like 20 months since he tore the ACL, and he's still playing ridiculous. 5 minutes a game.
It's either he doesn't want to play or his body's just really unreliable. It's been an issue with him ever since he was with the Spurs. He's a great player when on the floor, but he's hardly ever available.
Over the past 2+ years now, I think they're tied. Haven't Zion and Michael Thomas played the same amount of games?
Oh, come on! You're talking about. Percentage-wise,
only half jokingly here, but someone has to wonder about that organization's training staff.
That's true. I said that yesterday about the Saints.
Somebody needs to do a story on this.
Yeah, the amount of Saints injuries is disturbing.
It's the same training staff.
And it's been 2 years in a row now for both teams. So it's just been
somebody
a problem.
needs to look into this and wonder. And if I were the head of if I were Mickey Loomis, I'd be like, "What the hell's going on here?" And so, you got 2 superstars, basically. I guess calling Michael Thomas a superstar, but no one would have thought twice if you called him a superstar 3 years ago. So, something's got to be going on.
I will say with Ingram and Zion this time around, it was collisions. Ingram got a concussion. Zion fell on the floor. There's certain things
I know.
You can't do anything about those.
I'm half joking, but over the course of time here, you're talking about, something's weird about it. And they already – didn't they fire their head trainer a couple years ago? Peyton.
I know when David Griffin came in, he wanted to revamp everything on the basketball side of it.
They need to look into that because there's something weird going on there.
All right, well let's get into big bucks and we'll make our Saints picks. Let's make our Saints picks first. I've already said it. I'm taking the Saints in this game. I think they bounce back. I think you do see some Taysom Hill, like Jim said. It would help if Michael Thomas came back. Even if he doesn't, the Raiders are mistake-prone also. And look, the Saints are at home. They've sort of circled the wagons this week. You've heard Alvin Kamara say it. You've heard Demario Davis say it. They've got to start getting on a roll if they're going to, and I think they respond to that. So I'll take the Saints.
You're gonna see in big bucks the way I think to attack the Saints game if you actually want to play it. There's a better way to play it than just the spread. But I think the Saints win as well. I think that, again, I'm not impressed with Las Vegas at all. I think this is as much of – I think the Saints actually match up well with Vegas. especially if Devontae Adams doesn't play. If Devontae Adams doesn't play, or if he's even limited
he
at all.
should play.
If he's limited at all, I mean, Derek Carr, that is one huge weapon that Derek Carr is going to miss, and he hasn't been very good this year, to be frank. He's been very disappointing. I'm very disappointed in the Raiders' play as a whole because I thought they were going to be one of the better teams, and I thought they could be a potential surprise team. I picked the Chiefs to win the West, but I really thought the Raiders were going to contend, and they don't look like a contender at all. But so I do think that, it'll be funny because I think the Saints offense is actually going to have a pretty good day. So you'll have all the social media chirpies going, see, Darius, see, I told you, you're so stupid. I mean, that's what's going to happen on Monday. So I expect the Saints to have a good day offensively. We'll see if they play better defensively, but I think they win this one, and I think they actually win by maybe as much as a touchdown, but I don't trust them enough to play it. Again, when we get the big bucks, I'll show you how I'm going to play it.
All right, Spencer, your pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I'm going Raiders. I'm going playing the Raiders to cover and the over. I think that could make a decent little parlay.
All right. Now on to big bucks. My big bucks, I told you earlier, I had Bengals before the Jamar Chase news, so I'm stuck. I actually think Cincinnati could still cover in that game. South Carolina, Mizzou, don't understand this line. I know South Carolina has won with some smoke and mirrors. If you've watched Mizzou like I have, Mizzou grad
just
here.
A pessimist.
You can beat Mizzou with smoke and mirrors. They screw things up all the time. So I don't understand why that line keeps dropping. I'll take advantage of it. Uncle Big Nick said this on Datitude this morning. I like Kentucky as well. And I know we're on opposite sides here, Jim. Dolphins, Lions. Lions getting healthy on offense. The Dolphins might score 40 by themselves. So I think over 51.5 is a lock. And then not a lock, or I would have made it my best bet. And then for my teaser, I'm just taking a lot of points here with the Bears.
Yeah, that's not
and
the way
the
to play
Steelers.
a teaser. I mean,
What's that?
I don't want to poo-poo on your pick, but the whole gist of a teaser is to go through certain numbers.
They're both going through 13 and 14, my man, and 10 for the Bears.
That's not really the number that you're supposed to get. But anyway, I hope you win. I really am rooting for you. But just adding point here. The problem when you do teasers with teams that are getting a lot of points is you're obviously they have a much larger chance to get blown off the face of the earth. So adding points to a team that can get blown off the face of the earth is not really the recipe for winning long term in a teaser. I'm not saying it's not gonna win. I'm not even saying I don't think that it's not. I like both of those teams to cover. I think, but that's. You should have parlayed it.
All right.
You got as money wise, value wise, you're getting as good of a deal to parlay them. A better deal.
Mr. Expert, who's won a whole $49 on his 1,000. Tell us your
You might want to take a look at my record. If people are just betting the same amount of money on all my picks, they're winning a lot more than I am. So let's just say it that. All right, real quickly, I've already said it. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. The Patriots money line, when it went to 2.5, kind of scares me. I had minus 130 in my NFL picks. This is my bet of the year. This is my best bet of the year so far. The Patriots aren't losing to the Jets. I haven't done great with best bets. Finally got on the board. The rest of my picks have been great. Let's see if we can keep doing it. 49ers, Rams. Look, 49. I hate this because it's an Aunt Mabel pick, but how can you not? The 49ers have owned the Rams in the regular season.
You broke the golden rule.
I know. I'm breaking a golden rule, and I'm going with Aunt Mabel. So this is why I only have $22 on it. Kyle Shanahan is absolutely owned Sean McVay. So that's the way I'm going. I know that Spence and I are on the same side here. Packers plus 11.5 at the Bills. I can't believe that Aaron Rodgers is ready to quit. This is the Packers' last chance for me. They're just like the Bucs. I won't touch them again. If they get blown out here, I won't touch them again. And then Dolphins, Lions under 51.5 going against Zach. Look, the Dolphins and Lions, the last two, great. The Lions are getting healthy. Wonderful. The Dolphins and Lions have combined to score 40 total points the last 2 weeks. I'm not buying it. So, and this has kind of been static. So I think that's a good number, but I think that's too many points. But I only put 11 on it. I don't feel super confident. And then here's the way to play the Saints. Put them in a teaser. Even if they lose, I don't think they get blown out. I think that and I had to find a team to parlay to tease them with because the Bucs line went too far. So I picked the Giants plus 9. I think the Giants win that game straight up. People keep dissing on they're going to be my Giants. I'm going to call them my New York Giants soon.
Yeah, I caved in. You'll see on my picks. I caved in this week.
I was all over him in the beginning of the season. So we'll see.
All right, Guru.
Yeah, I had to go with them. I'll just go from bottom to top. Then Giants money line is my wild card. I had to go with them as I think they're. Yeah, I can't believe they're underdogs here. I know the Seahawks have been playing better too, but the Giants are freaking 6-1, and it's not totally fugazi. I mean, Daniel Jones has really stepped up lately. To me, there's so much value there. And then for the total Cardinals Vikings, I know Jeff Duncan's all over this one too. I think that's going to be a major shootout with both pass defenses being stinky. And then the dog, like Jim had said, Packers. I don't think they're dead yet. They should cover that. Chalk really like the Falcons this week against the Panthers. Don't get that line. I know the Panthers played well last week, but I think that was just kind of a one-hit wonder there. They stink. I mean, Atlanta's not that great, but they're a lot better than Carolina. They should win by at least a TD. And then Titans -2. I know you normally like the Titans, Jim, and to me, that's the lock of the week. I just don't understand. I know they're on the road, but only 2 points against the freaking Texans. I mean, Derrick Henry might run for 200 yards. The Texans have the worst run defense. That line, I mean, I've put some real money on that one. That makes no sense. They're only 2-point favorites.
Two major Aunt Mabel picks this week. There are two teams that 87% or more the tickets are on this week: the Titans and the Bengals.
So those are our two.
Well, I don't like the Bengals, but I like.
Well,
the Titans.
we shall see. Now, I think that will change with Jamar Chase out, but I will say this about the Titans: Ryan Tannehill was in a walking boot after the game last week. He's been limited in practice. Again, you say run defense, but if Malik Willis is the starting quarterback, you're a couple of mistakes away from a big issue there. So,
and I think this line kind of shows that I think the better's a word. I wouldn't put it. I said in my column, I pick in Tennessee only because I simply can't pick Houston in this spot, but I wouldn't touch that game with a stick.
And at some point, I keep saying the Titans' magic pixie dust is going to run out, and they won't get a turnover for a touchdown every week.
Again.
But we'll see. Well, maybe it'll keep up for another week.
Like even if Willis, if it ends up, which I don't think it'll be Willis, but if it does, I still don't think it'll matter because the Texans are not going to be able to stop Derrick Henry unless Derrick Henry would get hurt in the middle of the game. I don't see this one being anywhere close.
Just like the Bengals, I think they could cover despite the injury. I don't think you're drawn dead there by any means. So,
by the way, the Bengals can't stop the run. So that's why I really like Cleveland in this game. And I've already bet the money line and the spread. Cleveland, they cannot stop the run.
We got to get out of here. For Spencer and Jim, I'm Zach. This has been Bayou Bets. Raiders Saints on Sunday. Datitude Live with Jim and Jeff Duncan tomorrow morning at 9:15. And we'll be back on Monday, 4 o'clock, same time, same place to wrap it up. Thanks for watching, everybody.